Superannuation. It's complicated. And when it comes to changing it, it's a vacuum ready for a fear campaign. So what is and isn't happening with your retirement fund?
It's not a major change to the superannuation system. It leaves all the fundamentals in place. Everybody can still access generous tax concessions in the system.
The last time we were talking tax reforms, it was 2019 and Labor lost the un-loseable election. That left us with two things: Scott Morrison as Prime Minister and governments pretty unwilling to touch tax reform for fear of losing the electorate forever.
The Cabinet has met this morning and had a discussion.
Fast forward to now though, and the budget is in a pretty big mess. One that is only going to get messier.
Whether it's healthcare or aged care or disabilities or defence spending, but especially the interest costs on that $1 trillion of debt that we inherited from our predecessors.
But there is also about $150 billion a year in foregone revenue through tax concessions, $50 billion of that just for super. So Jim Chalmers is putting his little treasure a toe in tax reform waters, proposing a very modest change to people with more than $3 million in their super account. Sounds easy, right? Simple?
And what we intend to do is make these superannuation tax concessions fairer and more affordable. And I want to focus on that and not all the other things that we're not doing.
So what is happening? Right now, earnings from your super are taxed at a maximum rate of 15%. If you have less than $3 million in your super account, you can pretty much switch off now. But from 1 July 2025, after the next election, and only if Labor wins, earnings above $3 million will be taxed at 30%. So if you have $3.1 million, it's the earnings, the interest on the $100,000, which will be taxed at the higher rate. But this isn't an issue for most of us. First of all, you would have to be earning $200,000 every year for your entire working life to have more than $3 million in your account. And you'd still have to add in more money. And that's why only about 88,000 people will be affected by these changes. And they're not indexed to inflation, so they will impact more people as time goes on, but wages would have to rise a lot for it to be the norm. So it sounds simple enough, right? What's the problem? Politics.
It's not an election, a broken election promise, it's a tweak. Any more tweaks coming to trust accounts, capital gains or negative gearing?
We haven't been working up any options on that.
But it could be part of the agenda?
The Shadow Treasurer Angus Taylor says this plan, that will impact 0.5% of Australians and only if Labor wins, is an attack on middle Australia. The average super balance right now is about $150,000. And for most of us, when we retire, we'll be lucky to end up with $700,000 to take us through our non-working life. Howard and Costello gave away a lot of treats when it came to tax concessions, and now trying to change any of them upsets those who think they have earned those massive tax breaks. And if 2019 taught the Coalition anything, it's that there's plenty of fertile ground in tax scare campaigns.
Labor's coming after Australians' money because they don't have enough of their own.
We're not going to stand by and watch Australians attacked.
And then there is the game of rule in, rule out that journalists love to play with politicians, which then boxes governments in when they try to make any changes.
How can you guarantee it won't be extended? Will you put that into LAW law?
Super's one thing, but the family home in Australia.
And amid all of this debate about changing tax concessions on earnings above $3 million, there is no talk about the fees people get slugged throughout their working life by super funds. Or that unless you have a house that is mostly paid off, retirement is going to be quite difficult.
We want to talk about super as a country. How about we talk about the fastest growing demographic of homeless people in this country, which is women aged over 55.
And forget about having a grown-up conversation about negative gearing or franking credits, no matter how much they cost the budget and how few they truly benefit. So is Labor taking a political risk? The answer to that is, as always, only if you let it. Political fear campaigns are a little like voodoo. It only works if you believe in it. With growing pressure on public programs like Medicare, the NDIS and aged care, not to mention housing and welfare, there is a need for some serious conversations about how we're going to pay for it. Are we ready? Let's see.